Hello, everyone.
Hey,
Welcome to another Rive workshop this Thursday. We are super excited to talk about different ways to integrate Rive into your favorite platforms and tools. This was a super fun one because we got to build some new content, use some existing content, and really see where you can just plop a link and be like, oh wow, it just works here. Um, so yeah, we're gonna go over basically some different tools where you can drop Rives. If you're not familiar with our share links, you can look in the YouTube description box below to find our documentation on how to generate a share link for a Rive. It's a really great and easy way to share your content, share your work on multiple platforms. But yeah, I think we can just go ahead and get started. And we'll show off starting with Notion. Laura, you want to take it away?
Hey, yes. Let me see if I can share my screen. Are you seeing it?
Yep.
Okay. So here I am in Notion. I have a couple of links already working here. And I'm gonna go to the editor at Rive. And I have this chassis work. I'm gonna click on share link. I have the state machine selected. Generate the link. And here in embed link, copy that link and just as easy as this, I'm going to Notion, right click, and I'm going to see this, and I'm going to paste the link that I just copied. Oh, what is happening? Well, it's not working. Let me try again. Okay. I don't know why it's not working. I'm doing something wrong.
I
Try.
think
Oh, go ahead, Michael.
I
I'm
was gonna
gonna,
say you can try if you type slash embed. I think you missed. There's a little pop up. I did see the embed option,
oh,
but
okay.
try
Here.
type forward slash embed.
Like, oh, here.
Oh, there
Creating.
he goes. There you go.
Well, I don't know what it's happening now. Well, this it's supposed to be working, but it's not. Well, sorry guys. I can try to framer. I was ready to show the framer stuff. Um, I don't know
Yeah,
why
that's
it's
an
not
interesting
working.
one. Yeah. It might need some change recently around that.
Okay, I'm gonna
But
stop.
as you can see, like earlier on that page, we
Sorry
did
about
have
that.
some
Can I
embedded
try
Rives.
framer to? um,
Um, yeah, let's show off Framer
okay.
share links. You want to show off that?
So I got this. I'm gonna do basically the same. Try to copy and. Oh, I'm not sharing. Give me a second. Okay. Can you see it? Can you see it, the framer template?
Yep.
Okay. So I'm gonna copy and paste uh, the link of this animation, and I have the state machine here, and hopefully this time will work. I'm doing the same. Generated the link, the embed link, copy it, go into Framer, and here in Insert, I have typed embed. So I'm going to click here, and on the bottom right, I'm going to paste the link that I just copied. And now I have my Rive animation working. I'm gonna just adjust it a little bit. And if I go to preview here on the top right, I can see it that is working the interaction just fine. Oh, so that was it for me for Framer. I'm sorry about the Notion stuff. I don't know. I'm gonna try it again and see if I can.
Yeah, actually, we could probably do this really quickly. If you want to bring up Notion again, we got some internal feedback that I guess Notion updated, and we just have to drop the last part of that URL path where it has /embed.
How? Sorry, I didn't get that.
So like when like in the share link, there's like the end of the URL has like /embed in it. And I think we just take that part out, and then that's what Notion recognizes.
Oh, okay. Yeah, now it's working.
Cool.
I can try to share again. One last time. So I'm gonna copy this and go here. And now it's working.
Nice.
Okay. Sorry
Cool.
about
Yeah. I guess Notion had like a little hiccup there or something. Their embeds. Yeah, those are great ways to show Rives in the context of your notes in Notion, your Notion pages, and especially Framer with Framer sites. Super easy to just drop in. Cool. All right. Moving on, I can show off something around Tome. So let me find that window. For those of you not familiar with Tome, Tome is a tool to help build really interesting slide decks. So the interface looks something kind of like Google Slides or PowerPoint or something that you might have been used to, but it has some really cool, interesting options for adding different widgets here, but also different integrations such as like Twitter or Framer links, Figma, and then it just drops in really nicely. So you'll see here, I created this like example slide deck of a sneaker app prototype slide. Maybe I'm pitching a new sneaker app for some executives at a sneaker company. And this Rive was actually built by Michael here. So this is super fun to play with, by the way. If you haven't checked it out in the community, you should. But this is using a share link, and it has listeners, so it kind of just works. But let me show you how to build this slide. So I'm going to create a copy of this. I'm going to delete that. And then just show you from the editor. Again, I'm going to do the same thing that Laura did, where I'm going to generate a share link. I want to generate the sneaker share link here. And then I'm going to take the embed link. And then, like I mentioned, there's a bunch of different widgets within Tome that you can integrate with. For there's not a Rive really specific tile, but there's this web piece here where you can paste in a link. So once I paste in that embed, we've got our Rive animation going. So this is really nice if you've got a state machine with listeners and have it interactive or a looping animation. And you can just kind of show it off on your slide here, and it just works as is. So yeah, give it a whirl on Tome. It's free to use. It's a really cool little piece here. I think I have another slide here. Yeah, another piece that another Rive that Michael built with these avatars. You can integrate like Twitter widgets here. So I integrated that correlated tweet that Michael wrote up for this one. And then you can include some of these like little tags here as well. So it makes for a really dynamic kind of slide deck here. So that's Tome. And now I'm going to stop sharing and hand it over to Michael, where he'll show off how to use Rive and Webflow.
Yeah, thanks, Zach. Go ahead and share my screen here and kind of walk through the file that I have set up. So this is just a little character I built that for kind of like this little fake fitness website app thing. So this is just a animation that loops. Guy's stretching out, ready to get his workout on. And then I've also put together this little silly tagline. So this was just imported from Figma, some SVGs, and it's got a listener on it, some listeners on it. So just gives you some fun interactivity when you mouse over the letters. And then this little logo, it's that character from before. It's just got some mouse tracking on it. So what we're going to do is take these elements and feed them into a little Webflow template. So let's jump over and take a look. So this is just a basic Webflow template with a header that I dropped in from one of their presets. So let's hop back over to the editor and let's grab this animation, and we'll go grab our share link and generate that link. And for Webflow, we want to take this embed code, the iframe code here. So we'll copy that and jump back over to Webflow. And then over here, we want to create, let's see, should be an embed option here. So we'll paste that in. All right, so there's our Rive animation right inside of Webflow. Let me go ahead and position this inside of this container. And then let's go grab that text as well. So we'll do the same thing. Grab our share link, generate the link, and you want to make sure that if it has a state machine that you selected that state machine in that drop down in the previous window. Copy that, bring it over here, and we'll add another embed. We'll just drag it over here this time. Paste that in there. All right, so that's in there now. And when we go to preview it, you can see that all of our interactivity is working just like it did over in the Rive editor. So let's drop that last little logo piece in. So go ahead and do the same process, generate the link, grab the code, hop back over to Webflow, and then up in this nav bar, let's see, we want to put it in here. So we'll grab another embed, plop it in there, paste our code, and then save it. And so there's the little logo mascot. We'll preview this, and look at that. He knows what's up. He's following your mouse cursor. He's stretching. We've got interactive text, and it's all super easy to do with those share links. So yeah, that's how to get your Rive animations and interactions over into Webflow.
And Webflow is really interesting too, because like you showed, it gave you basically this empty canvas of a code editor. So you could theoretically use our web runtimes and stand up, use runtime code to further control your Rives if you needed to. So it's cool that it does like kind of both. It's a double whammy for integrating Rive. Sweet. All right. Next up, I'm going to show off. I'm going to actually go back to Framer and show off how we can do an even deeper integration. So if you joined us a few, I believe, live streams ago, our co-founder Guido, he went over our launch of the Framer code component integration, where you can have even deeper control of Rives into Framer sites. As you saw earlier, you kind of just drag and drop the share link in, and it just works as needed. Sometimes, especially if you need, the help of a runtime, you want to get more granular control into using the state machines, or even positioning the layout of your Rive on the canvas, and even playback controls. And so usually you'd have to use runtime code for that, custom runtime code. But thankfully, we have a very special integration, again, that Guido showed off. So you can check that out. He goes over a really neat demo, I think, using some interactive icons in a Framer site with this integration. But I'm going to just re-show it again. So imagine I have this Framer page. Maybe I'm creating a design system site, and I want to show off a page that's this switch component. Some of you might be familiar with this switch. It's one that JC built here. It's like this cool little beach switch. And so it's got this listener that with a hitbox, and then it has this is pressed input here that toggles on and off. And so I want to show that here, but I also want to be able to toggle that switch outside of the Rive canvas, so not using listeners. And so again, normally to do anything outside of the Rive canvas that controls Rive, you'd have to use runtime code for that. But in this case, you can do it pretty easily with Framer. So the first thing I'm going to do is generate our share link with that state machine. And then if you scroll down here, you'll see Framer code. You just go ahead and copy this. You really don't have to know what all of this means. It's essentially some React code that's using our React runtime under the hood that knows how to display and get metadata from this Rive. And so I copy that code, and I'm going back to my Framer page. And I'm going to go into my Assets tab here, into the code section. And I'm going to create a new code component. So I'm just going to call this Rive switch component. And you'll see here that it throws up some default code. You can just replace this with that code snippet that we got from the Rive editor. Again, you don't really have to know what any of this means. It's just drag and drop in code. Kind of like the days from like Neopets or MySpace or something. And here you'll see you can interact with that Rive using listeners. But yeah, we created a code component using that. And so what we're going to do here is we're going to drag over that code component that we just created. And you can reposition this as needed. And now you may notice if you've used Framer and share links with Rive, you may notice this new section. This is basically the property section that gives you a lot more detail into the Rive itself, the Rive file itself for this share link. And so you'll see that it's got that is pressed Boolean input that we have from our state machine, as well as some other playback options as far as like, do you want to automatically play the state machine when it lands? And then you also have some fit and alignments options as well. So if you make this super wide, or if you want to change the layout of the Rive artboard on the canvas, then you have some different options here as well. And this is all laid out in the documentation in our help docs, by the way, if you want to understand more about what some of these values really mean. But most of the time we have some pretty reasonable defaults here, so you don't usually need to mess with them. Cool. So I have this Rive on the page. Now imagine I want to toggle this switch by hovering a button on outside of this Rive canvas here. So I'm going to create a button. Oh, I already had it. So yeah, Framer has some really cool widgets that you can search for and insert. It makes it pretty nice to do a bunch of stuff here. But I'm going to actually rename click to hover me. And then just adjust the layout. So again, when I hover over the button, I want the switch to toggle on for the Rive. And then when I hover out of the button, it goes back into this off state. And so the way I kind of connect these two things is I'm going to actually group these two and make a component out of them. And so you'll see here in the Layers tab, I just selected both the Rive component that I created, this switch state machine 1, and this columns layer here that includes the button. I'll go ahead and right click and create a component here. I'm going to call this grouped Rive component. And we enter this new stage here with variants. And so a variant is kind of just like you can imagine it as like a state of this group. And so here you'll see I still have that switch state machine 1 with this is pressed set to no, which is the default. But you'll also see I have the button here as well. And so I basically want to create a new variant where is pressed is yes or true in this case. And so I'm going to, it has a handy way to create a new variant here. So I have variant 2, and I'm going to set that state machine value is pressed to yes. And so this is like, hey, this is a new kind of variant of the group. And the way I make that connection of like when I hover the button, go to variant 2 is if I click on this, you'll notice this like little lightning icon. I can drag and drop this I can drag this over to variant 2, and you'll notice this interactions piece here in the properties panel. By default, it has an interaction of tapping going to variant 2, but we want to do hover. So I'm going to add a transition. And so we have this little modal that comes up. And in this on property, I have this tap, but I also have mouse enter and mouse leave, which is equivalent to like hovering on and hovering off the button. So I'm going to do mouse enter. So when it hovers over the button, I want to set the variant to go to variant 2. So this kind of makes sense, right? So like when I mouse enter into this button, I'm going into variant 2, and variant 2 has the state machine input is pressed set to yes. So if I play this, or actually let me play variant 1. If I hover over the button, you'll see it goes into that variant 2 state where it changes that state machine. Again, it's changing it completely outside of the Rive canvas. So this is really powerful stuff. You could imagine all kinds of UI elements being able to do this. But now I want to connect it in the opposite way. So when I hover off of the button, it goes back to variant 1 where is pressed is off or set to no. So I'm going to go to this variant 2 button, and I'm going to connect it to variant 1 here. And I'm going to set a new transition from mouse leave back to variant 1. All right, now if I play this group again, I'm hovering into variant 2, and hovering off, I go back into variant 1. So if I go back now to my framer page that has this group, those changes should already take. You don't need to do any changes here because we already have that group derived component. So if I play this page, I've got my switch component for this design system page around around switch components. So if I hover in, change the state machine, hovering off, going back. And so this is a really simple kind of example showing just using a button, how you can manipulate state machine inputs. Normally, again, you'd have to do this with runtime code to get this granular control. But with Framer specifically, we can tap into their kind of framework and tooling to be able to have a bunch of different elements, be able to interact with Rive and control that interactive content. So yeah, just wanted to show that off again. Yeah, you can look at our live stream a few live streams back where Guido shared this. We also have a very dedicated page in our help docs in the description box below, showing step-by-step kind of how to do this, this specific example. So you can follow along there as well if you'd like to see written content. But yeah, that's our deeper framer integration there. And now I want to go into our last integration piece, which is actually using some runtime code to hook up state machines and animations to scrolling behavior, which I don't know if we've ever actually shown this off before. So it was really exciting to try and build something like this. So we built a plant blog. If you haven't seen the links below, you can play around with it at the Vercel app. We built this Next.js application that, let me just try and find it. That has some scrolling behavior that hooks up into Rive and uses our, in this case, React runtime, but you could use it with a web runtime too, with a small bit of code. And we'll go over that in a bit. But just to show off this for a second, you can see this plant vine thing growing on the side, which is really neat. And it kind of scrolls through the end of the page. And we've got some other really cool interactions that we'll go over in a bit. But it also, this vine is also retracting itself as you scroll back up. And yeah, before I kind of go into the technical details of kind of how we made this happen on our blog, I'm going to hand it over to Laura to talk a bit about the Rive that she built that you see here on the side.
All right. Let me see if I can share my screen again. Okay. Can you see it?
Yep.
Okay. So I'm going to show you how I did this plant growing using blend state. So this is a state machine, and this is the plant growing, as you just see it. So I'm going to show you, for starters, how did I do the central branch. So I'm going to stop this, and I'm going to hide all these layers just to show you how I build the central branch, which is this this stroke. It's just a green stroke, and for this to, in order to make it work, I added a trim path. One animation with the trim path at 100%, and another animation with the trim path at 0%. So if I now go to the state machine, I'm going to show you how did I hook up this. I'm going to throw in here one animation. The start of the end is the same. And here on the right bottom of the screen, I have the states animation, single animation, blend 1D, and blend additive. We're going to choose blend 1D. And we're going to make sure that I have my input already created. It's a number input, which you create from here. And you're going to make sure that you have that selected. And then I'm going to add one animation here, and you're going to see this drop down. I have all these animations, and I'm going to choose the start. Then I'm going to add another one, and I'm going to choose the end. The start, I will leave it at 0, and I'm going to type at the end 100. So now, if I go to the state machine, they're supposed to be blending together from 0 to 100 and from 100 to 0. So now this is working. And now I'm going to show you how I added the flowers. They all have their own layers, and I did basically the same for all of them, so I'm going to show you one of them. So now when you go, you see this flower going out, going in, and then going out. So what I did for this was I made an animation of the flower going in, and another animation for the flower going out, and another one in idle, which is just the animation at 0% of opacity. So when the state machine starts, you don't see the flower yet till it reaches the number we want. So now I'm going to show you the transition that I need in order to make this work. Okay, so I have the flower idle, which is this state, and I'm gonna show you. I'm gonna hook up this all together. I have the flower in, the idle, and the flower out. Okay. First, I want the idle to go. I won't put any transition on it, any condition. And then I want the flower to go in. So for that, I will add the input, scroll input, and I want for this to happen at probably 11 or 10. I'm gonna choose 11. So here, I'm gonna say that I want this to happen when the number is higher or the same as 11. So when I go, now it's happening. Now I want the animation to go out when I go down. So for that, I'm going to say to the condition that I want this to happen when the number is lower or equal at 11. So now it's not going back because it's staying here in the out animation. So I'm going to add the animation back, and I'm going to tell the same as the beginning. When it's higher or equal to 11, this animation will reproduce. So now it's working. So what I did with the other flowers is basically the same. The only thing that it will change is the number input here. As higher the plant grows, the higher is the number that they are growing or going out. I hope this was somewhat useful.
Yeah, that was great. I love like using all these like 1D blend state kind of examples to show how you can like use number inputs in like so many different ways. I think we've shown it with like actual number inputs in like UI or like loaders, but this is a really cool way to show off, something growing and in the context of course like a plant blog. But yeah, that was awesome. Thanks, Laura. Michael, do you want to show off what you made in a similar fashion to that?
Yeah, so when we were talking about and kind of planning this project, we were bouncing around some ideas, and we had the plant blog, and we wanted to show a plant or something growing, and we also talked about doing like a recipe or something building as you're scrolling. So we ended up working on like, how would you make a glass of lemonade? So I'll go through the process or kind of how this is set up. First, let's take a look at the animation here. And so the cool thing about this is, so our state machine is the same and our input is the same. So we've got scrolling behavior as a state machine and the scroll percentage from 0 to 100. Like that was all we needed in order to be able to swap these out on the blog mockup. So let's go ahead and play this. So as you scroll through here, I'll kind of slow this down, but so you have a cup that comes in, water, a little lemon juice. There's a little sugar on there on the spoon, mixes up, and then a straw to enjoy. So that's done. I mean, essentially it's the same thing as Laura's, right? It's got state machine and then that scroll percentage. The way that it's put together is fairly similar, using a lot of these blend states. So like for the on, we have the cup. This is like the cup off. This is the cup on. We've got a little animation that's triggered at a certain point. So the cup rocking, I can show you where that happens. So I've got it set up in a very similar way, where when that scroll percentage is greater than or equal to 9, it'll play that little animation. There's a few other things that happen in a similar way where little events are triggered based on that scroll percentage. The water is using a blend state as well. I can show you, let's see, water default and water finish. So you can see this path here. It's got a stroke on it. So it's just a trim path and it's animating down. If I go back to the actual animation here, you can kind of see where this blend is happening. So it's just transitioning between two, keys essentially that are in separate animations. The water filling is the same thing. It's just a clipping mask that's moving up, keyed, at the empty state and then at the full state. And then you can see the little splash is another example of just an animation that's triggered at a certain point. So yeah, that's really all there is to it. It's just a bunch of little triggered animations that are kind of going off at the right time based on where the scroll percentage is. So yeah, that's it. There's an interesting thing here with the spoon mixing. I can kind of talk about that really quick. It's a little bit more of a complex blend state, as you can see, but basically there's a few different positions. Let's see if I can find where the spoon is. So the spoon starts off and then it moves to the, moves kind of to the middle and then inside the cup. And then there's the spoon mix forward, which is just the spoon moving over and rotating a bit. And so for the mixing, it's just bouncing between these two in that blend. So if we go back to that and we scroll through here, whoops, I probably need to play it, huh? I don't know if you can see, you can kind of see which animation is playing. That little fill, it's kind of hard to see, I'm sure, but it's there. So you can kind of see it when I start going through this spoon end, which is when the spoon enters the cup, and then it goes to the mix to the left, then it goes back to the end, then back to the left. And so I thought that was kind of a neat way to show, like, with just a couple animations, to have that kind of stirring effect there. So yeah, that's how it's constructed. This is up on the community, so if you wanted to take a look at how it's set up, you can do that. But yeah, that's how to make lemonade.
That's a wild trick with that blend state. I've never used it like that before. I've done multiple animations, but to toggle back and forth between the same animation is or two different animations, that's really cool.
Yeah, there was, I mean, initially it was out of laziness and not wanting to make like a bunch of different animations. I'm like, I'll just reuse what's there, and it worked out pretty well. So
nice. Same thing goes in coding. I'm just like, I could do this the proper way, but I just want to make it work. Just get something out there. Cool. So just to briefly show how we got that scrolling behavior, and we'll revisit the blog again and actually show off that lemonade an example. I'm showing off my editor here. Hopefully that's fairly legible. I'll zoom in a bit more. So again, yeah, this is a Next.js application, which is kind of a nice framework and tooling for building websites and web applications, and it uses React under the hood. And because of that, we're using the React runtime here. But a lot of the concepts that I'm about to show can be used with the plain.js plain.js web runtime. Yeah, so similar concepts here. But just to kind of give a brief overview for those of you maybe not familiar with what the React runtime looks like for setting up, I've got this component called scrolling Rive, which is going to be that vertical plant growing or the lemonade growing on the side of the page. I'm using some tools from our React runtime. This is a use Rive hook, and I'm passing it in some parameters. You would do the same with the web runtime. It's the name of the Rive file that we're wanting to load in, the state machine, some layout parameters, and whether or not I want it to autoplay. And then I get this Rive instance here. I'm also getting a reference into the state machine input, that scroll PCT input that you saw in Laura and Michael's state machine in the editor. You'll see I'm trying to grab a reference to that and set its initial value to 0. And then at the bottom here is where I actually render the canvas on the page, this Rive component. This is JSX syntax that it looks very similar to HTML, but this is what actually puts the thing on the page. And I have it, I'm using this really interesting technology. I never worked with it before. It's called Tailwind CSS. It's super fun. I had a lot of fun using it these past few weeks, trying to figure out this blog. And it's basically just a bunch of utility CSS classes to build your CSS and styles for you without having to actually write any CSS. But I won't digress and go too much into that. That's just this fancy syntax that you see here. But really, the meat and potatoes of what I want to go over is this useEffect function. You don't have to worry about what useEffect does, but this, starting on line 31, is really what we want to go after. So the way I kind of achieve the scrolling effect is I'm grabbing a reference to the body element of the page, which is going to be the entire body. And actually, let me share my whole desktop because I think it'll be easier. Sweet. Okay. So I'm grabbing a reference to the body of the page, and the body element is basically the element that goes from here all the way down to the bottom of the page. So really the encompassing website. And I'm just trying to get the scroll height in pixels. So the height in pixels from all the way up here, all the way to down here is what I want. Let's imagine for now, for easy math, let's say that's 1,000 pixels. It is way more than that, but for now, we'll just say it's 1,000. And I basically want to see, hey, how much have we scrolled down the page on that body element? And from that, I want to get that in pixels. So then you can see I can kind of get a percentage, like based on the amount of pixels of the height of the page and the amount of pixels scrolled on the page, I can get a percentage like, okay, about 25% of the page was scrolled. And so I have this event listener on the website. This is a web API to essentially listen to whenever there's a scroll event happening. And so every time I scroll up and down, this thing is triggering this scroll callback function. And in this function, what I'm doing is getting the scroll top. And this is that part where I mentioned like, hey, how much of the body element have I scrolled? So say I scrolled about to 50% here. And imagine again, the entire height of the page is about 1,000 pixels. This will give me about 500 pixels in this value. And so from here, this is where I kind of do just a bit of math to try and calculate, okay, well, given 500 pixels and there's 1,000 pixels height on the page, that's about 50%. So I'm going to try and get that into a numerical value of 50. And so you can kind of see from here where I plug that value in. I'm using that number input that I have a reference to in the state machine. and plugging that value into that number input. And because the values in Laura and Michael's state machines go from 0 to 100, I can pretty easily correlate that value percentage of how much was scrolled to that number input in the state machine. And so that is really what's determining that blend state, changing the number input continuously here. And it's pretty smooth because that callback is happening every time I scroll. It may not be the most efficient, but because this thing will actually run several times. But that's really what makes it smooth here, and you can achieve this effect. And I'm making the Rive canvas actually takes up about 1/4 of the height of the viewport, and is a fixed element. And so for those of you maybe not super familiar with CSS, that just means no matter how far I scroll, this element is always going to be on the page, and it takes up the entire height and about a 1/4 here. So that's just some CSS I'm doing here to always make sure that the Rive canvas is consistently on the page, and you can achieve this kind of effect here. We were definitely inspired by another company that used Rive in a similar fashion. Not exactly the same way, but it was pixelpoint.io. If you haven't checked it out, definitely do so. They have a really cool scrolling animation where it shows some shapes falling and stuff like that. But yeah, and so I also want to show real quickly, obviously this was Laura's plant example that we went over, but like Michael mentioned, because it has his example with the lemonade has the same state machine name and the same state machine input. And it also kind of functions in the same way where it's a 0 to 100 range. I can just change a reference from Laura's Rive file to Michael's scroll.rive. Cool. And so if I scroll down here, you'll see Michael's example starting to take place here with the lemonade making. Scrolling in that sugar and then the straw. And then scrolling back up, it reverses all of that. So again, if you have multiple kind of design iterations that you want to try, as long as state machine names and inputs are the same and kind of function in a similar way, then it's really easy to swap out different assets here. As you saw, I just kind of changed one line. So yeah, that's how we achieved the scrolling effect. And again, if you're using the web runtime, it's really just this small bit of code to calculate how much of the page you've scrolled. You can use that to set a number input with a web runtime. So yeah, feel free to check out their Rive files. They're both in the community. You can remix them and try it out with your own design ideas and achieve something similar. Also, the code for this is in the description box below. It's open sourced. You can fork the project if you want to tinker with it. It's based on a template blog starter app from Vercel, and it's deployed to on Vercel platform as well. But also really quickly, I wanted to give a shout out to Robert, who made some of these awesome Rive animations for some of these. If you want to chat about some of these, this one was really fun. Basically, we just came up with some wacky titles and some small descriptions of, like, I don't know, what would plant blogs be? And so we just came up with silly titles and descriptions and made Rives to match.
I actually really enjoyed that, having the titles as like a prompt to go off of. Yeah, so the only reason I didn't make a little scrolly thing is, as most of you all know, I was out when this whole workshop was getting planned, and came back and just wanted to piggyback off everybody and just, what are we doing this week? And got a nice little ease back into the work week doing some of these animations. The plant parent one that one's my favorite. I was so surprised with how cute the little character came out. I was really happy with that. I wouldn't say that there's anything like technical to really cover there. The state machine is really basic. It's an idle animation that plays, and then there's another layer in the state machine that controls the hover effect. And the button's a little more complex, but I'm not sure if we want to take a look at it or not.
Yeah, we're probably good, but love these animations. They fit in so well with the theme. Yeah, if you actually do play around with the site below, ignore all of the text because that was just a bunch of gibberish. I don't know anything about plants actually. And so anyway, I'm gonna stop sharing now. Those are our integrations. Obviously, you can use share links for a bunch of other platforms. We've shared it across Twitter and other social media platforms, but a lot of places that unfurl embed links, it should have Rive working. And if you do find any places that maybe we haven't noted before, we'd love to hear about it if you want to share that with us.
Cool. Thanks for the heads up on not acknowledging the text in there, because I was about to use all of those tips on my plants, and I'm glad I didn't. Because
Oh God, no, you might kill them.
Well, I'm pretty sure all you have to do is put the plant in the ground and then put the water on the plant, and then it grows, right? Photosynthesis.
You would think, but that's how I killed my tomato plant. Cool. Well, I think we that's at least our planned portion. I think we could probably start hopping into some of the comments and questions here.
All right, let's do it. All right, we've got 2 questions so far. If you have any questions, make sure you drop them in the chat so we get a chance to queue them up. Okay, so our first question is, does Notion support in-play animations? I don't know what that means. That's a good question for Zach, I think.
I also don't know what in play really means. With Notion, I mean, with the share links, I think we shared a Rive with a state machine, and it probably had listeners or something. But you could also create share links for your artboards that have just individual animations. Maybe that's what you're talking about. If it's like just a looping animation or a one shot or something like that, you can create share links for those, and they'll work exactly the same way in Notion. Hopefully that answers.
You could also, I'm not really sure what in-play is, but if you want to like control the playback of an animation, let's say you only want to play the animation when someone clicks on it or whatever, you can set up a state machine that can take care of all that and use listeners, and you don't have to do any coding to make that work.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Okay, next question from the same person. Is there any tutorial or a blog about layers in the state machine? Layers are not documented. They are documented, but they're not, because I was just checking the help center. They're documented, but they're not like, deeply documented, because essentially layers only, so each layer can play a single animation. If you want to play multiple animations at the same time, then you use multiple layers. There is a video on animation mixing in the YouTube, and I'll try to find that and link it. And that talks about layers, but essentially all of the tutorials or animations that you can find on YouTube that we have goes over layers in some way.
Yeah, I think the simplest way to think about it is just like Robert mentioned, just being able to have multiple animations playing at the same time and kind of, stacking up those animations in a sense. Like a good example, if Robert did a live stream last night where he had a character that had like a blinking eye animation, and that can play throughout the duration of the state machine being played, but it can like on top of all the other interactions and animations that are happening. So it's kind of just like if you could think of like an idle animation that you would want to have going constantly, and then that's layered on top of, whatever, like a walk cycle or a head moving or something like that. So, but yeah, those resources that Robert's looking for should help a lot too. There are some caveats with the way that they mix, right, Robert?
Yes. So let's we can look at something really quick from last night's live stream. I'm just going to make another video on this because there was a lot of stuff that I went through that didn't quite that didn't quite get explained as well as I wanted it to. Okay, so let's look at layers just really quickly. Share screen. There we go. All right. So with this, I was building a custom mouse cursor last night. If you didn't see the video, it's on YouTube. You can check it out. And essentially what I did with layers was on one layer, I have all of my interactions. So we've got like the idle animation, we've got a hover animation, and then 2 different click animations. Now, if you look at these animations specifically, you can see that some of the eye stuff is animating. In the sleep animation, the eyes are animating. But in the idle animation, the eyes are just stationary. And to make animating this and using the state machine a little bit easier, you can break these different parts out, like the eyes, and put them on the same layer. So for every state that we're in, the blinking is going to be occurring all the time. But when we go to like the click animation where it does something different, we don't want that blink to actually happen. So what we need to do is use this eyes off animation. And what this does is it unkeys the eyes so that the blinking isn't playing anymore, and animations in these other eye animations and these other animations will play. So if we don't have this eyes off animation and we're always playing this blinking animation, you can see when we go into like the click animation, it's still blinking. Which one was it? It was the sleeping animation. Yeah, so in the sleeping animation, the eyes are still blinking, and we don't want that. We actually want the eyes to stop blinking. When we go to idle, what would it be? True. When idle's false, it goes back to blinking. So now when we go to is idle, those eyes are closing. Now we can change the order, the layer order here, because the way that the priority of the keys work is the layers to the right will have priority of the over the layers to the left. So let's say we do this and we take this. Let's say we take the eyes off. So now the interactions layer is to the right. So when we do things like the is idle, you can see that we didn't even need to add that because the eye keys are now in a right layer, or a layer to the right of the eye layer. And so those keys are taking priority. So it's really about how you want to set it up. But just remember that the layers to the right are going to take priority over the ones to the left. That was kind of a long-winded. Oop, no, that's not what I want to do. Long-winded way of saying that.
Cool.
Okay, another question. Why does Rive freeze for some time when I leave the tab? Will it be the case or solved in future releases? I would imagine that's going to get solved in future releases. It happens. And that's it for right now.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, yeah, this was super fun. And always amazing to get to play with some of y'all's animations. I just get to plug and play them in apps. It's fun. Cool. But yeah, so I think we've got a live stream coming up next Tuesday. And I guess we'll see most of y'all then, hopefully.
Who's going to take next Wednesday's stream?
That's a good question. That is unanswered as of now.
We also, if you didn't know, we started a live stream on, Wednesday nights, US time. That's probably, hang on, I'm going to guess, Thursday, super early morning, UK and East times. But we'll also be switching folks out. Like JC wants to do one, and he'll be doing it in the morning, which is, basically our normal time slot. And so it'll work for everybody who usually joins these streams, which we appreciate.
And those are more just like working sessions rather than, yeah. So like your mouse pointer, like the custom mouse cursor and things like that, just a project that you're kind of walking through and working on.
Yeah, it's like a Rive Unplugged video, except way more unplugged. So a little inside baseball for everybody. Usually when I do those Rive Unplugged videos, I would do maybe 30 or 40 run-throughs of the same animation. That is not what you're going to get in these live videos. It's a constant, it's a what do you call that? Like a train of consciousness, just sort of talking through an animation, figuring stuff out.
Those are always fun.
Yeah, no, it was a good time.
Yeah.
Nice.
So we'll end up deciding who's gonna go next Wednesday, and we'll share that on the social medias and
Ooh, a 404 page. That'd be fun.
Oh,
yeah, that would be cool. I think we've got some. I think Guido tweeted some cool 404 stuff on the new Framer site. So try and break it. Try and find something that doesn't go anywhere, and see if you can trigger that.
Awesome. All right. Well, I think that's a good place to wrap up for today. So thanks everyone for joining, and obviously thank y'all for being here.
And thank you, Zach.
Yeah, thank you.
Being you and, putting together that amazing plant blog. It really was awesome.
Yeah.
Couldn't have done it without y'all's Rives. Awesome. All right. I'm going to end this broadcast. See y'all.
Bye.
See ya.